Too many things are always coming up. I haven't actually talked about Star Wars in a little bit, which is a disappointment to me. So hey, I'm back. I want to talk about Star Wars Battlefront 2 and 5 planets or maps that I think the game still needs that I would just love to see from different eras. And I took some of the feedback that you guys said about certain other things, using the prequels too much, and I'm trying to actually go into the sequels as well for this one and some expanded stuff that's still canon. So there will be more videos like this, but today, 5 maps or planets that we still want to see, or I want to see, in Star Wars Battlefront 2. Now, the first one that I took a look at is actually not from a mainline film, it's not from Rogue One, it's not even from Solo, and that is a little planet called Christophsis. This is from the original Star Wars The Clone Wars movie, which was really a prelude to the show, before it inevitably got canceled and now brought back for its final season. Christophsis was a source of a pretty huge battle in the Clone Wars that was a big focus of the original Clone Wars movie. There was a lot going on here between the Separatists and the Republic, and it's just an interesting looking map. I mean, you look at it, there's a lot of like crystalline, icy spires in the background, and formations that are sort of in this hexagonal shape on the ground. There's actually a lot of unique aesthetics to this map that I think would look really good, and that do serve to separate it from something like Hoth, or another ice planet, or even something like Crate. I think it looks different and unique on its own, and there's a lot to it that you can do with that. The second planet I think would be great to see in this game would actually be Exegol. This is from The Rise of Skywalker, so hey, there are going to be a few spoilers here for The Rise of Skywalker, but we'll just keep it brief. Exegol is located in pretty much the unknown regions of space. There's a lot of different areas where we could do something, and there's actually a few game modes I could see happening in Exegol. The first one would certainly be something like the actual Starfighter mode I could see happening up above the ground, because you have to remember that in The Rise of Skywalker, there actually is a fairly big ship battle that happens up above the ground in the atmosphere of Exegol. And you got to think about this. How cool would it be to have all of those Final Order Star Destroyers actually just hovering above the ground, you know, in like a in a ship battle? That'd be amazing. So you have like the Rebellion, or I'm sorry, the Resistance in this case, which is really just the Rebellion again, going up against the Final Order Destroyers. I would say you'd probably want maybe one of those destroyers to actually be functional and firing, so that this is not completely unfair, and use the others as set dressing. But you could sort of have a map taking place here in Starfighter that would just be really fun and epic. The lighting would be very different. It's certainly something I'd want to see in order to actually flesh out that sequel content. On the other hand, on the ground, there's a lot you could do as well. You could certainly do something like a heroes versus villains map down there near the Emperor's Chambers. You don't necessarily have to put those things in the background, but it would be very cool to have like that area in the temple be sort of a heroes versus villains area. But it also is technically big enough on the surface of this planet that you could have a ground battle. If you wanted to, you could even do something like, instead of having the ground battle on the ground, have a ground battle on the top of one of these Final Order Star Destroyers, like what we see a little bit in the movie. There's a lot that you could do with Exegol that I think would be very unique and interesting that we haven't seen yet. So that's definitely one that I would love to see in the game. The third planet that I'm excited about, but I don't know if we'll ever see, is actually Utapau. This is from Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith. This is a prequel planet, and it's one that we actually got to see in the original Star Wars Battlefront 2. As you know, they did Star Wars Battlefront 1 and 2 way back, PS2, PC, Xbox era, and then they actually, did some spin-offs, and then EA got the license, they remade Battlefront as its own thing, and then they made Battlefront 2, and it's been expanding ever since. In the original Battlefront 2, we got to see Utapau, and there was a lot going on there. This was the planet where you actually had General Kenobi actually go up against General Grievous. So there is stuff that you could do here. The hangar area, all of this is very big, and it was big in the original map, big enough for a full-scale ground battle in the hangar. But you could also, again, do heroes versus villains in a smaller area, depending on what you want to do. If you want to do heroes versus villains, you could either keep it in the original hangar, where Grievous was confronted by Kenobi, or maybe you even move it to their final confrontation after they, went on a bit of a fast and furious chase on the surface of the planet. There's plenty you can do here. And it's really a beautiful planet. I think it's a shame if we don't see it, because it is, I would say, one of the fan favorite planets from episode 3. I mean, there's a lot going on there and a lot of space to work with. And I just really think it would be awesome to see, especially now that we have Grievous and Kenobi both in the game. If we ever get another Clone Wars season, or just another Clone Wars drop of content in some way, I would love to see Utapau. The next planet I have is actually from Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, a highly contested movie, but we're not here to talk about that as much as the planet itself of Octo. Octo is fascinating. It's really one of the, like the Jedi temples, like the first Jedi temple that Luke found in the movie. This is a pretty sacred site, and you have a lot of room to work with here, even though it's a smaller set of islands. You have the porgs that could obviously be running around in the background, really pissing some people off, but I would find it amusing. And you could either have the fight be in the village, sort of leading up to the temple and the tree, or you could just have a smaller map where you have heroes versus villains around that temple and the tree area. It's totally up to the developers, but I think it's something that would be neat to see. And something that's interesting about this map, actually, to me, is that we already have an Octo skin in the game. I mean, Rey has her Octo skin on. Like, not originally, but you start with the original Scavenger, you can unlock the Octo, you can unlock the Jedi robes, then you can unlock the 9 robes. So the fact that Octo, which I always mess up, is already heavily referenced in the game, to me means that it would really be a good fit to actually work in there, especially in the promotion of the sequel trilogy. The final planet I had, which, by the way, before we get to that, I will say as an honorary mention, I would love it if they actually added something from The Mandalorian. There's a few different planets that I can think of, but every planet in it has been so beautiful in its own way that I do think that they could certainly do something from that. And actually, I'm going off script a little bit from what I worked on. And so there are going to be some minor spoilers for The Mandalorian. I'm not going to talk about what happens at these places, but I might have to show an image of the show in order to actually show what the planet looks like. But I would love to see something at the ice planet in the beginning, which is sort of an ice wasteland. And then there is actually another area that I would love to see, which is from later on in the show, where they actually go to a prison complex. I don't want to say too much about it, but there is a prison complex in the show, which is really interesting in outer space, which is actually a space station. I'm trying to be super vague here, but there's a lot you could work with that in terms of the visuals and just it being very different and sterile and having its own unique feel. Those are my honorary mentions because I do want to mention The Mandalorian. I'm hoping that in Season 2 we get to see even more unique show locations, but so far, out of what we've seen, those are the places I want to see. And for my final pick, for the final planet that I would want to see in Star Wars Battlefront 2, that definitely has to go, for me, to Mustafar. Mustafar is from Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. This is the planet where Anakin actually went to finish off the Trade Federation Viceroy along with the other, the other leaders of the Separatist army. This is where he went then to, right after executing Order 66 for the Emperor, and then he was confronted here by Padme, and then he fought Obi-Wan here and was obviously, crippled and turned into Darth Vader. This is where his life was completely changed. But the actual atmosphere and look of this planet is extremely different from anything we've seen so far. You have the volcanic eruptions, you have the lava everywhere, you have the machinery that you'd be fighting on top of. I think this would be a perfect heroes versus villains map. I don't know if you'd be able to fit an entire ground scale battle here. They did in the original Battlefront 2 expand the map and do so, but I really think that as a heroes versus villains map, this would be incredible. I think that especially if you could ever add in a mode, and this is just me spitballing an idea, like a 1v1 lightsaber mode for any two characters, even if they're on the same side. Imagine playing here on Mustafar, and you are Obi-Wan and your friend is Anakin, and you're fighting through the halls of Mustafar, dueling. This would be incredible. This would be amazing. Show-stopping, breathtaking, brilliant. This would be Man, I'm just nerding out thinking about it. I really want Mustafar in this game. Just not for only how different it is, but the possibilities that are going on here. I would be so excited. So hey, let me know what you think in the comments down below about these ideas from both the mainline list and the honorary mentions from The Mandalorian. Are there any planets that you would love to see that maybe I didn't mention? What sort of game modes would you like to see with those? And hey, by the way, because I am trying to do Star Wars content again as well, what other Star Wars content would you want to see? Do you want to see me talk about other Star Wars games? Are there other ideas you have for top 5s from Battlefront or ideas for Battlefront? What do you want to see? Be sure to check out the links in the description below to follow us on Twitter and Instagram, where we're going to start doing some more interesting giveaways and other stuff, and you can see sort of my thoughts on different things. And hey, join the Discord, where you can actually communicate with a whole family of gamers and nerds and nerdettes. And everything in between, where we talk about Star Wars, Batman, DC Comics, Marvel Comics, video games, everything. And as always, have a fantastic day. Check out the Patreon if you're so inclined. It means the world to me. I'll see you in the next one.